The wine in my glass was a deep, bruised crimson, much like the state of our marriage. Elena didn't look up from her phone. The blue light cast a ghostly pallor over her face, sharpening the features I used to worship. Now she felt like a stranger occupying a familiar body. The chime of a notification broke the silence. She smiled. It wasn't the smile she gave me. It was lighter, dangerous. "He's coming to the gala tonight," she said, her voice casual, like she was discussing the weather. I swirled the liquid. "Who, Elena?" "Julian, my ex. He's back in town for good. He'll be in my life, Mark, frequently. Deal with it." The air in the room didn't just thin, it froze. She wasn't asking for permission. She was establishing a new world order where I was a secondary character in her revival of a lost flame. I looked at her, searching for a tremor of guilt. There was none. Only the cold, hard entitlement of a woman who thought I was too weak to leave and too invested to fight. The deal was simple in her mind. I would provide the lifestyle, the security, and the name, while Julian provided the excitement. She began disappearing for hours. "Coffee with Julian," she'd say, or "Julian needed help with his gallery opening." She stopped hiding the scent of his cologne on her silk scarves. It was a psychological war of attrition. She wanted me to break, to scream, to give her a reason to call me the villain so she could run into his arms with a clean conscience. But I don't scream. I observe. I watched the way her eyes glazed over when I spoke. I noticed the new lock on her phone. I saw the bank transfers, small, incremental amounts moving to an account I didn't recognize. Betrayal isn't a single blow, it's 1,000 microscopic cuts. I felt every single one. And with every cut, the man who loved her bled out, replaced by something much more clinical. I started my own investigation, not with private investigators, but with silence. I invited Julian's world into mine without him knowing. I looked into his gallery. It was a front for a failing real estate firm drowning in debt. He wasn't back for love. He was back for Elena's trust fund. I also looked into the woman he had left behind in London, Clara. Clara was a surgeon, brilliant, poised, and utterly devastated by the way Julian had emptied their joint accounts before fleeing back to Elena. She was the collateral damage of his greed. I reached out. We didn't talk about pain. We talked about mathematics. We talked about justice. We met in shadowed corners of high-end hotel bars, two ghosts haunting the people who had tried to bury us. While Elena spent her afternoons reconnecting with Julian, I spent mine with Clara, orchestrating a symphony of consequences. The night of the Autumn Foundation Gala arrived. Elena wore emerald silk. She looked triumphant. Julian was there, hovering at the edge of her shadow, his eyes darting toward the jewelry around her neck. He thought he had won. "You look tense, Mark," Elena whispered, tapping my arm. "Try to be civil for me." "I've never been more relaxed," I replied. I walked away from her, toward the grand entrance. The room went quiet as a woman entered. She wore midnight blue, her hair a sharp platinum bob. She was breathtaking. Every eye in the room followed her, including Julian's. His face went gray. I met her halfway. I took her hand and kissed it. "You're late," I said, loud enough for our table to hear. "Saving a life takes time," Clara replied, her voice like velvet-covered steel. Elena marched over, her face a mask of controlled fury. The deal was being violated. I wasn't playing my part as the grieving husband. "Mark, who is this?" she hissed, ignoring Clara entirely. I took a slow sip of my drink, looking at Julian, who looked like he wanted to dissolve into the floorboards. "This is Clara," I said, "Julian's wife. Well, his current wife, the one who owns the debt on his gallery, the one he's legally required to pay half of your gifts to. Elena's hand flew to her throat. The silence was absolute. "You told me to deal with your ex being in your life," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "I did. I invited his wife into mine. We've found we have a lot in common, mostly a taste for better company." I looked at Julian. "The locks on the house were changed an hour ago, Julian. And Elena, your access to the trust is suspended pending the audit Clara's lawyers just filed." I didn't stay for the explosion. I didn't need to see her tears or his frantic explanations. I walked out of the gala with Clara on my arm. We stood on the sidewalk, the cold night air biting at our skin. It felt honest. I looked at the ring on my finger. It felt like a shackle that had finally rusted through. I pulled it off and dropped it into a nearby storm drain. No sound, just gone. Elena thought she could keep a ghost in our bed and a provider in her home. She forgot that a house built on a hollow foundation eventually collapses under its own weight. I felt nothing for her. No rage, no longing, just the profound, quiet clarity of a man who had finally cleared the wreckage. I turned to Clara. "Dinner? Somewhere dark," she said. "Perfect."